Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where it's our 12th year anniversary! I really wish this had come out on Monday the 26th where it was intended to. That happens only so often. As is tradition, we're going back to the Spider-Man Clone Saga, the true monster of Halloween, rising again like a slasher movie franchise year after year, as both the audience at the time and my own audience has to keep groaning and saying, wait, this is still happening? And yes, as I have to keep reminding you guys, I am not running out of Clone Saga stories to cover. We skipped over plenty before Ben Reilly became Spider-Man, and there are still plenty afterwards, plus a lot of stories featuring Ben or acting as sequels or remakes of it. And since we never know if we're getting a decent storyline or a crappy one, it epitomizes Trick or Treat. Justifications of still using the Atop the Fourth Wall theme song aside, let's set the stage of where we are now in the saga. This takes place just after last year's The Exile Returns storyline, wherein Ben took on the Scarlet Spider identity and defeated Venom. There was a Spider-Man Unlimited issue between stories, but we can skip that for now. The Spider-Man books, of which, as a reminder, there were 4 of at the time, were split up into the Peter books and the Ben books. A decision that definitely made sense since it allowed people to become acclimated to Ben while still enjoying stories with Peter. Web of Spider-Man and Adjectiveless Spider-Man went to Ben, Amazing and Spectacular Spider-Man to Pete, and thus both books had mirroring stories, with Ben's being today's outing called Web of Life and Peter's Web of Death. Meanwhile, Spider-Man Unlimited, I guess, was doing Web of Undead and probably fitting better with the Halloween theme. The stories had some minor overlap, but not enough that we need to cover both at the same time. The idea was apparently that Ben Reilly was starting a new life, while over with Peter, he was facing possible death, closer than he had ever gotten to it than before. Lord knows this year needs something on the subject of life, so let's dig into Spider-Man, Web of Life, and see what that entails for Ben Reilly.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where dead comics rise. Linkara's gonna bring you all a Halloween surprise. Monsters from scary stories and adjacent categories. If you step into his laboratory, you won't believe your eyes. Linkara, is a man punch, or is he something else? Linkara, for the last few days he hasn't been himself. Linkara, brains, gore, skeletons and guts. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Life is a highway, I won't ride it on.
Reading from a trade, so skipping the covers. Not that there was anything really interesting to begin with. We open Web of Spider-Man number 120 with the Scarlet Spider fighting longtime minor villain Tombstone. Out of my way, little man! Tombstone's back to stay! Tombstone is gone after this scene. Atop a careening armored truck that a super-strong criminal is about to commandeer, it runs through the Scarlet Spider's head so often, this litany of denial, that he rarely hears it anymore. Boy, I can't wait for Arby's to bring back the smokehouse pork belly sandwich. I just know it's gonna happen any day now. But it's there. Always there. Pounding. Resounding. Echoing. Damn it, I can't get WAP out of my head. This is not fight music. But no, what is the thought that's preoccupying Ben's mind? I am not a man. I am not a man! After the standard narration about the angst of not being the real Peter that we've come to know, we have, of course, the fight between Tombstone and Scarlet Spider on top of the armored car. Eventually, Tombstone knocks out the driver and the car goes careening towards a restaurant, so Scarlet leaps into its path to stop it. Which seems like a terrible idea and more than he can handle, but I guess the car was only going like 10 miles an hour or something, since he succeeds. Although ripping up the pavement in the process. Man, what are the kinds of shoes he and Spidey normally wear that he can withstand that? Nikes? Tombstone is Spider-Man's old foe. Just another in a long list, apparently. and he should be Spider-Man's problem. Yeah, little known fact, when you become part of someone's rogues gallery, only that hero is supposed to be dealing with the crimes you commit. It's why there are so many supervillains operating out of New York. You've got like a 1 in 100 chance of actually encountering the hero who's supposed to stop you. Scarlet takes a street lamp and smacks Tombstone with it, which finally knocks him down to the adulation of the civilians. Nearby, a figure is watching from the roof. Soon, Spider. Very, very soon. As soon as I figure out how I get down from here. We cut over to the Cravenoff estate, aka the former home of Craven the Hunter. On the slim chance you don't know who he is, Craven the Hunter is a Spidey villain who... well, I guess it's implicit in the name, isn't it? Craven is one of the few villains who truly screwed with Peter and technically beat him, doing so by abducting him, burying him alive, and then swung around in a Spider-Man costume for a while in an effort to prove that he's better at being Spider-Man. The superior Spider-Man, if you will. After thinking that he'd proven his point, Craven killed himself, and it's a death that stuck for quite a while. 22 years before being resurrected, having some adventures, hanging out with Squirrel Girl, and then dying again because comic books. And now we are introduced in this mansion to his son, the Grim Hunter. An echo is all Vladimir Cravenoff ever really hears when he speaks. He should really get some furniture to help with that echo. The Grim Hunter had shown up once already, right before the Clone Saga started. He's plotting to take down Spider-Man for, I don't know, honor or something. I've studied every detail of Spider-Man's methods, his moves, his haunts, his weapons, and his limits. And now I shall sell this information to Google. We have more in common now than you ever dreamed, Father. For one thing, I think we may have been the same age. The spider has shamed us both. How did we both fall for the "is your refrigerator running" prank call? He says that Craven abandoned a life of honor in this house that was never his home, but that he'll embrace it by killing Spider-Man, throwing knives at pictures of him. Well, clearly this isn't your home, otherwise you probably wouldn't be throwing knives around that ruin the drywall. Meanwhile, the Scarlet Spider remains busy, now fighting a bunch of terrorists aboard the aircraft carrier Intrepid. And these are comic book terrorists, so naturally they're a bunch of high-tech armored goons with lasers. Think Cobra, but lamer. We've got a surviving faction of Ares trying to re-establish themselves in the terrorist underground. Given that I have never heard of Ares in the 20-plus years I've been reading comics, I'm gonna guess that the re-establishment campaign didn't go so well. Ares is an acronym for assassination, revolution, extortion, and sabotage. Well, points for advertising your services right in the name. Saves time. In the crowd, Ken Ellis and Betty Brant are in the middle of arguing about who will get to cover the story, but instead let's focus on how Scarlet easily deals with the Ares goons, using the stingers and impact webbing he developed in the last storyline. He also has to save the goons from shooting each other because of some poor strategizing on their part. Just more boys with toys that make noise. They need poise while stealing coys and playboys and receiving attaboys. Oh no! The stinger's made from alloys! His weapon redeploys! It really annoys. What a bunch of losers. Yeah, you say that, but I'm the one who just stretched for a bunch of rhymes. They're the real McCoys. The police storm in alongside Ken Ellis, who wants to know how Scarlet Spider knew about this situation, but he just decides to swing off, not wanting to answer any official questions about his identity or the like. He spots Betty Brant in the crowd, wondering if she recognizes him, but of course knows that's not the case, especially since blah blah blah, I'm not a real boy. The real Spider-Man never seems to be around when you need him anymore. Must be too busy bouncing through his new brownstone with his gorgeous wife. And we see Spidey passed out on a roof due to the events of Web of Death. Hey now, we haven't looked at Web of Death yet. It's possible that he passed out from all the partying he's been doing. Oh, who the hell am I kidding? It's Peter Parker. He's probably been beaten up by 3 friends who have become villains and learned that he somehow contracted 10 diseases at once due to his spider powers. Kane is also standing on a roof, watching the hospital where Aunt May is so he can wait for Scarlet Spider to show up. His name is Kane. He no longer recalls if it's a title born or earned in blood. How is the name Kane a title? Whether he christened himself or was named by another. Actually, that's a good point. Did we ever learn when he got the name Kane and why? Maybe we did, and I just don't remember myself, but it's just so weird. And yet so appropriate that Peter would just go full darkness, no parents, edgy when designing a new identity for himself. After receiving some kind of precognitive vision of Mary Jane Watson being chased and killed by an unknown figure, Kane leaves to go investigate. Speaking of, after a brief interlude with Mary Jane meeting a friend in Pittsburgh, we catch up with Ben standing on the Chrysler building without his mask on, because this was back in the days when people didn't have cell phones to immediately take his picture. He's starting to feel like his life has purpose again, but he's annoyed by the Scarlet Spider name that the Bugle attached to him. I've talked about this before, but I remain baffled that the creators apparently hated the Scarlet Spider name so much that they transferred it onto the character. The thing is, what's the alternative? What name did they want him to go by? Because the character keeps insisting it not be Spider-Man. The Grim Hunter, meanwhile, is seeking out Spider-Man, but instead gets on the trail of the Scarlet Spider by mistake, encountering some military police who were securing the Intrepid and kicking their asses. News reports were accurate. I'm picking up a scent. The news spoke highly of Spider-Man's terrible B.O. The Scarlet Spider shows up at Betty Brant's place to offer an interview with her to try to clear up some stuff, though when he mentions he'd like a sympathetic ear, she seems to get cold feet because of some recent trouble she's had maintaining objectivity in her job. But then soon Grim Hunter arrives a little bit after Scarlet leaves. And really, I'm just wondering how the hell he's parkouring around New York's rooftops with only one hand, since he's carrying around a knife the whole time. He decides to keep Betty alive to act as bait in the future, and then resumes the trail, ending the issue. Just kind of a lackluster note to end on. Still, over to Spider-Man number 54, where Ben sneaks into the Daily Bugle at night to try to find Ken Ellis over, again, the Scarlet Spider name. After reminiscing in his head for a moment, Jameson shows up and tells him to leave. He's actually surprisingly more restrained than normal, telling Scarlet that he doesn't buy the do-gooder act and that he'll be there to report the facts whenever he slips up. Scarlet, on the other hand, just tells him to stop having his reporters call him Scarlet Spider. I might have my lawyers contact you about that. Just thought I'd warn you. I know it's just a joke, but what would the lawyers have to say exactly? You gave him a name when he hasn't given one himself yet? Over to the Cravenoff penthouse suite, where Grim Hunter is ranting to a picture of his dad about how the special elixir he came up with is helping him find Spider-Man. Also, amusingly, he has put up new pictures of Spider-Man for him to throw daggers at, though this time he's using the daggers to hold up the pictures. Probably should just get some command strips. Also, Craven's butler or whatever watches this and just kind of shakes his head disapprovingly because he knows that trying to hunt Spider-Man is going to end badly. Over to Ben, he talks briefly to the random woman he met in The Exile Returns, who helped get him to a hospital after his fight with Venom. She's named Gabrielle, and I cannot recall if we ever see her again after this storyline. Every time they try to set up some love interest or supporting cast members for Ben, they just kind of vanish off the face of the earth. And outside, Kane watches. And meanwhile, here's Kane, our mysterious new character who we should care about because he doesn't do anything and just stares at things for multiple issues at a time. Be impressed with the mystery! Oh, but don't worry, after a one-page bit where Mary Jane goes to see a doctor that'll reveal she's pregnant, shouldn't that be over in Web of Death? Kane finally does something! He fights a whole squad of parallel universe Spider Jerusalems. Coming soon, into the Transmetropolitan verse. His narration just rambles about how he's alone and in pain, and look at how mysterious and cool he is, damn it! And meanwhile, Spider-Man is still just dying on a rooftop from Web of Death. Believe it or not, there's kind of a point in referencing it here. Basically, it's about them having a shared dream of waking up in the Jackal's laboratory, set up for the smoke and mirror storyline to get the audience wondering which of them is the clone. But then we also have Kane. He neither sleeps nor dreams. Explains why he's always so cranky then. He stands alone, wrapped in the shadows of the night. Do you see how cool he is? Do ya? Best character we ever invented! After Ben wakes up, it's here where we're first introduced to Seward Trainer, Ben's confidant and pal, who ended up becoming a computer program later. But let's not dwell on that goofiness. Seward Trainer is a scientist, a man of vision. So my latest project is trying to give gophers the power to read minds. He has devoted his life to the pursuit of knowledge, and the practical application of that which he finds.
Well, Piggly 3, that would certainly explain the glowing. And probably a few other things.
Geez, Trainer even kind of looks like Krieger. Ben tells him about the dreams and wonders if he started to degenerate like all the other Jackal clones. Trainer tells him that he'll come to New York immediately to help. After that, he goes to clear his head by swinging around as the Scarlet Spider, heading out to talk to Betty Brant again. The two apparently felt some romantic tension between each other. Don't ask me, I'm along with you guys for this ride. And Ben thinks this might mean something more serious in the future. Betty telling him that she took herself off the Scarlet Spider story because she feels some sort of connection to him that she can't explain. And then the Grim Hunter decides to cockblock the incoming kiss. Scarlet saves her thanks to his spider sense. He, of course, does not know who the hell Grim Hunter is, and he sends Betty inside, leading the Hunter away from the area to keep her safe. Grim Hunter says he doesn't care about Betty since she's not part of the hunt. They fight for a little bit, with Hunter ranting about how this is all Spider-Man's fault that his dad is dead. His journal tells the tale. My father's words have condemned you from beyond the grave. Dear diary, Spider-Man says he only sees me as a friend. Eventually, the Grim Hunter realizes that Scarlet's fighting style is wrong, different than when he fought Spider-Man, and while his scent is the same, it's very clearly not the same guy he fought before. As such, he turns and leaves to go find Spider-Man. I can't let him escape. He endangered Betty and... Betty! I've got to make sure she's okay! Even though I saw her get back inside her own house without any problem, I need an excuse to let the bad guy get away! He goes back to her and she says that she can't shake the feeling that he's familiar to her, but he's just all, no, the person you think I am would have handled this better. Never should have fooled myself into thinking I could have a real life. It won't happen again. The hell are you talking about? You fought him, he decided to end the fight. I don't get how Spidey would have done any better than you. I know the writer needs to keep up the, woe is me, I am but a clone crap, but it seems like they're kinda missing a few steps on how to get there. That ends the issue, bringing us to Web of Spider-Man number 121. A bunch of goons are harassing a homeless woman when Kane decides to show up and T-pose these two criminals unconscious. I can't dream! After he murders the last one, the homeless woman tries to thank him, but he just ignores her and steps on the photo of her daughter that the goons were taunting her with. Kane, the mysterious new asshole! Scarlet's back on the trail of the Grim Hunter, worried that he'll find Peter and catch him unawares if he can really track his scent. Although he should probably be more concerned about the spontaneous blizzard that started up between issues. The Grim Hunter tracked me to Betty Brant's place believing I was Peter, wanting to kill Spider-Man, but the scent was wrong, he said, which makes sense. Even though I'm Peter's clone, our scents wouldn't be exactly the same. Our pheromone output must be different.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
Also, that's not what he said. He said the scents were the same. It's that your fighting styles were different, and thus he could tell you're not the same person he fought. This is part of the problem when these individual issues are written by different people. Little details like that slip through. You'd think an editor would be double-checking this stuff. Anyway, he stops a taxi from hitting a woman crossing the street due to them skidding on the icy road. We stopped? How could we have possibly stopped? I thought we was dead for sure. It's like a miracle. And we see that this happened on 34th Street. Wow, I bet that driver's thinking that it's a wonderful life. I only hope that he can go home and sing a Christmas carol with his family. Unless he doesn't have one and lives home alone. Santa Claus conquers the Martians. Over at the Kravenoff estate, so is he staying at his family mansion or a penthouse? Or does he just feel like swapping between the two because he's rich and can get away with that? Grim Hunter is sitting and staring at a huge picture of his father while the butler/assistant/whatever watches and narrates how he fears that the same madness and obsession that took Craven away has overtaken his son. And here I am just wondering if it was Craven himself or his kid who decided to just put in the huge picture of him. Because if it was Craven himself, as someone hugely egotistical like myself, I get hanging a big picture of yourself on the wall. But why not at least have it be art depicting you doing something awesome? Why just, like, Head and Shoulders? Commission someone to show you pulling Excalibur from the rock, or fighting aliens or something, for crying out loud. Also, Grim Hunter is completely naked. And given that silhouette, he's apparently a Ken doll. In the role I am intended to play in this mad drama, I can only be an observer, watching in frustration as he plummets even faster. Still, if I'm going to be an observer, at least he's got a great ass. After a quick visit to Detective Raven for building up to the trial of Peter Parker stuff, we see the Scarlet Spider staking out Peter and Mary Jane's brownstone. Kane is following Ben and decides to just randomly break a chimney, because as we've established, he's a colossal dick. In any case, as he watches Parker, I will be watching him. The Clone Saga! Thrilling watching action! I say that, but apparently he decides to screw the whole watching plan and attacks. Scarlet tries to use his stinger darts on Kane, but they just bounce off whatever the hell his mask is made out of. The impact webbing does a little better to restrain him, but he just breaks chunks of wall off and hits Scarlet with them instead. As he prepares to kill him, the Scarlet Spider notices the Grim Hunter arriving and knocks him back. But Kane finds a random large piece of rubble and smashes Scarlet with it. However, the issue ends with Kane deciding to confront the Grim Hunter himself. And thus we reach the final part of Web of Life, Spider-Man number 55. Somewhere on a rooftop lies the man the newspapers have labeled the Scarlet Spider. He can think of himself only as Ben Reilly, but that's not as marketable. Ben had met Kane back during his time before he returned to New York and is just confused why he doesn't just kill him and get it over with. Because he's not very well written, Ben. Kane and the Grim Hunter begin their fight, with Kane offering up narration captions. He stalks Spider-Man. Would kill him. I know that because shut up. Caused me to act prematurely. Caused me to lash out at Riley. Sure he did, Kane. Even though he was not even close by when you decided to randomly attack Ben. Scarlet checks in on the apartment first, seeing nobody there, but he has visions in his head of Peter living out his life and how much he wishes he had that. Torturous dreams which only serve to remind me of how empty my life is. This is crazy. Why do I do this to myself? Because you and Peter both need therapy, dude. But at this point in comics, therapy was thought to involve orgies and hot tubs or enemas, at least according to the last episode. Meanwhile, Seward Trainer arrives back in New York, taking up an old abandoned laboratory he used to live in. Seward Trainer, one of the world's leading geneticists, is home. And he dyed his hair between issues to take out the graying sides. Back at the fight, Scarlet's still feeling the effects of getting hit with a big rock and observes the fight from afar, realizing that he can't take the two of them on like this. It would be a lot easier, smarter even, to just let the two of them tear each other apart. Go in and pick up the pieces afterwards. But I just can't do it. Just like Peter, I'm an idiot. He tries to swing over to them, and falls unconscious and hits the ground instead. He quickly recovers, but only enough to shoot a tracer onto Kane before collapsing again. The Grim Hunter manages to knock Kane away and decides to flee, Kane chasing after him. Later, Ben wakes up and returns to his hotel room, only to find Dr. Trainer waiting. Seward offers to let him come back to his lab to stay in instead of the rat hole hotel, but Ben wants to go back out after Kane. Speaking of, Kane continues his search for the Grim Hunter, thinking he might be the one who kills Mary Jane in his precognitive visions. By the by, I think they decided to include the Ben and Peter don't smell the same thing in the later issue because they realized, wait, if they smell the same, wouldn't he notice that Kane smells exactly like Peter too? The two once again fight in Central Park, but Ben, now partially recovered thanks to his snowy nap, comes in and uses his stingers again. I guess whatever Kane made his mask out of, he didn't put the same material in his chest since the stingers work there, and they paralyze him temporarily, and thus make him fall into the icy water. Ben tries to save him, but can't find him, eventually deciding to head off and see about warning Peter about the Grim Hunter. Considering the next storyline after this was Smoke and Mirrors, where no such warning was given, good job on that one, Ben. Turns out Kane was sticking around, same as the Grim Hunter, and the two end up fighting each other again, ending with Kane using his Mark of Kane on him and killing him. Gregor, the assistant or whatever, comes down, and so our comic ends with Gregor holding his lifeless body. As Kane disappears into the storm, Gregor holds the lifeless body of what is the closest to a son he has ever known, and even as his grief overwhelms him, a plan of vengeance begins to form. One that he quickly forgot about and instead went off to hang out with Kazar in the Savage Land. No, I'm not kidding. These comics kinda suck. So first things first here, Kane killing the Grim Hunter and all. The reason for the death is partly to do with stuff that ended up happening over in Web of Death, wherein a longtime Spidey foe was killed to show how dangerous Kane was. Howard Mackie in turn offered to kill off the Grim Hunter as well. Why? Well, the speculation, and frankly it feels fairly accurate, especially with his appearances, is that they introduced this new villain, the son of Craven the Hunter, out for revenge against Spider-Man for his father killing himself, and they had no idea what the hell to do with him afterwards. The Grim Hunter was around for a whopping total of 8 months from introduction to this point where he died. They play up the Grim Hunter right before the Clone Saga that he's a major player, devote a lot of time and the 50th issue of Adjectiveless Spider-Man to Peter fighting the dude. Then comes this storyline, and he's gone. Instead of actually trying to figure out something to do with him, something that set him apart from his dad other than his even goofier costume, they just killed him off after all of 8 months.
This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot.
Oh, but let us discuss this story where he died, shall we? It's not good. For all the talk about Web of Life being about Ben starting to get his life back together, he really doesn't. In fact, Ben barely does anything in this story. He whines about the name Scarlet Spider, he angsts a lot about being a clone, he fights Kane and the Grim Hunter, calls C-word, and that's it. He plays no part in actually resolving anything that happened. If he hadn't shown up to the fight at the end, it would have made zero difference. He never even contacts Peter to warn him about the Grim Hunter. Not that it matters anyway, since he's dead after a handful of appearances. The Clone Saga had barely started, and already it was spinning its wheels. It was just such a fat load of nothing. Next time, Secret Origins Month begins with something a bit more marvelous.
Sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst words that you will ever see. It's sad that comic books are for geeks, but they're not. They're for everybody. If you doubt that I am a man, I am a man.
Afraid to face me like a man?
Come down here and fight like a man.
I don't suppose I could convince you to come up here and fight like a spider.
No time for resting now, Linkara. We shall begin again. You will confess all that you know, all that you fear.
We've been at this for hours, asshole. I think I've told you plenty.
You have tried to deflect your confession with trivia and irrelevancies.
Well, personally, I think it's really interesting that people in the Federated States of Micronesia can join the U.S. military without residency or citizenship. But I guess that stuff's not for everyone.
In this realm, time does not pass in your dimension. I could keep you here forever until you give me what I want to know.
And all I want to know is, who the hell sent you?
What?
You knew about me the instant you started. You were ready for me. And confessions about what I'm afraid of are useless to you. You don't need my fears for that. But someone sent you because they need to know. So, who sent you?
What is that?
How the hell should I know, dick cheese?
Subdimension classification type 39.
What? How did you?
A disruption has occurred by the implementation of this temporary subdimension. It has affected the stabilizer.
Speak plainly to me, stranger. I am Confession, and I demand your...
Silence! You are an aberration in this experiment, arriving by way of natural disaster. You are in a position to demand nothing. Primitive, and the nature of your attack is mystical in origin.
This is a nice change of pace, even though I have no idea what's going on.
Excellent. That is how it should be. Experiment disrupted by crude magics.
Crude?
It will be corrected.
Who the hell are you? And what the hell is that thing?
Implementation complete. You never saw me.
Ugh. Ha! We've got him back!
Linkara, are you alright?
I feel like a rainbow!
Wait, that creature! It did this. It brought me back here.
What creature?
That being. It said it corrected my presence.
You and I were the only ones in there, asshole!
Was that thing torturing you?
Yup! Shoot it now! Shoot it a lot!
No, wait! There is more at stake here. I can sense it. Time has been changed. Your memories are...
Gun shoot now!
How are you doing?
Better. Gonna have a lot of new stuff to talk to my therapist about this week. Any sign of the confession?
No, pretty sure it's not coming back.
Good. And the box?
Linksano's examining it now. He's hoping to find a clue as to where it came from and who sent it.
Do what you have to. I am eager to find out who did this. And maybe get a little confession out of them, too.
Chief.
What is it, Yorick?
It's been confirmed, sir. The confession has failed its mission.
Well, this is why you don't rely on just one strategy, Yorick. Did we get anything from it?
No, we're pretty sure Linkara blew it up.
Huh. Well, we've learned something about him today. He has a high threshold for pain, and the will to overcome even something like that. This lull in the contest won't last forever, Yorick. Storms come and go, but we march on. The intelligence we could have gotten on Linkara would have been helpful, but it was not our only tactic. My instincts tell me he and I will battle, and I will be ready. It has been a long time coming, but the prize of the Contest of Champions is almost within our grasp. We must be patient that it will resume, and that I will finally claim my prize.
Yes, Chief.
Get Wilford to start some drills. We march on.
Hello my friends, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!